for everyone to get in. But Nathanius, would you like to do the honors? Introduce these two players.
My pleasure, Metals. Guys, spawning in the bottom right position of this map, Belshir Vestige, we have the blue Protoss player. You might know him as the Premier League caster. It is XMG's ToD. And spawning in the top left position as our red Zerg player, coming in for VP BenQ, it is Slivko.
Now, these two, absolutely spectacular. They've had a pretty tough run. I took a quick look at the stats, the predictions, and if you theory crafted them, the winner of this should be Slivko, but only just. It's about 56% chance that Slivko will take this. But I don't think that tells the full story, because ToD, of course, in recent weeks has been really tied up with a lot of the stuff to do with the Premier League casting. But in the last week, since Apollo's been working with Kalaris, he's had time to practice, and I know he's been putting in a lot of time. He's got really strong play, and that in itself leads to some really exciting speculation about what could be coming on. Now, if you were in these two positions, Nathanius, what sort of things would you want to be doing? What kind of openings would you be trying in the first game of this series?
Well, honestly, Matt, it's the first match of the day. Of course, we don't know how much these players have done in the immediate vicinity to prepare for this, but most certainly they've had a lot of time to at least look into the particular matchups that they could be coming into today. So I feel like Slivko is going to play things a little bit on the safer end. We already see ToD opening up with the gateway. So I was actually speaking to him a little bit before this match, and he was telling me he has a pretty reasonable idea of the way that Slivko likes to play. Goes for a more macro-oriented late-game style. He still prefers to use infestors in this matchup, so that could be something that ToD could be preparing for, possibly going for an early timing based off of this gateway opener, or just finding a way to abuse a potentially passive build from Slivko. And we do see him going with that hatch first. It could definitely be a possible option for him, but he is going to be going for a quick gas, it seems.
It is a quick gas, and that hatch first is something which can be very risky. If you expect your opponent to be going for some kind of aggressive forge play, you can always get a risk of being cannon, but the Overlord is now just coming in towards a natural base, and the one reason Slivko can get away with this is because, let's just take a look at this natural ramp. It is pretty wide. It's quite a difficult area to wall off, and therefore a gateway expand is getting favored by a lot of Protoss players. There we see that Slivko will be able to see that the Nexus has just been thrown down. He's fully aware of the timings. He's going to feel very confident now that his hatchery's up. He's got the gas, and the big thing I'm keeping an eye out for, Nathanius, is whether or not the gas is cut after 100, enough for surging speed, or whether Slivko keeps on mining it. And what you're saying about infestors, it's always a possibility. ToD there just getting out his mothership core. That's going to start banking up energy fairly quickly. The Zealot was skipped. It is now on its way out. So both these players going very economical at the moment.
Yeah, I agree. And as per your comment about the gas, we do actually have Slivko pulling the drones away at 100. One of the things that, pretty standard, his Overlord saw that this wall was super late. The Nexus it wasn't a Nexus first or anything. So Slivko knows it's a gateway opener just based on what his Overlord saw, seeing absolutely nothing at the natural when his Overlord arrived. So he could have just taken the gas for defensive purposes. Most of the time, if you want to hold off a very fast 2-base 4-gate timing off of a gateway expand, you're going to need some Zergling speed to be able to actually deal with those units coming at you. So he can still go for a very macro-oriented play. He can still go for a lot of drones and take a quick third base, but as he doesn't have a drone headed there just yet, it still remains to be seen. What do you think we're going to get here? Twilight Council coming out from ToD, Metals.
This is a very unusual sort of opening. To be honest, I was expecting a Stargate. I just felt that that's what he was going to go for. There's some dead space around the main base, which you can try and utilize. We can see from the Overlord placement that Slivko has got good vision around everywhere, just making sure that if there was any Stargate play, it would get shut down. But the Twilight Council, it's a bit more unusual, but it makes sense, because there are these additional gateways down. 3 gates at the moment only, no 4th. That's quite important, because a lot of Zerg players do expect that a gateway expand to be followed up by 3 additional gateways into a bit of pressure with the Mothership Core. But this Twilight Council, I'm feeling that it's probably going to be for a relatively early blink, and the reason for that is because oh no, it's not going to be for a Dark Shrine. Okay, this is quite a big commitment actually here from ToD. He wants to really do some damage early on.
Yeah, this is a very interesting play. Of course, that Mothership Core was able to do a lot of poking, as it were, on that third hatchery for Slivko. But the Dark Shrine play, given the current state of affairs, is actually going to pan out somewhat reasonably well, but it's all going to come down to how well Slivko scouts, because he is getting his lair up, and that's one of the advantages of getting the gas at that timing, typically speaking. We would see a lair starting around 7 minutes. A lot of Zerg players like to take their gas at about 6 minutes or 5:45 when they open gasless, but that can also be, you know, a little bit of an edge that he gets, because he's also going for the Roche Warren, and it's going to come down, like you said, Metals, it's going to be very important that he deals with this Dark Templar very well, but it's an interesting decision.
There's a Spore Crawler right outside the natural base of Slivko. He built that before he's seen anything. That is such a smart move by him, because straight away he's going to get detection of any DTs moving in. The only vulnerability is in that third. So as long as he's very proactive with taking that out and builds a Spore Crawler at his third as well, he should be completely safe. Overlords are not in a great position to sacrifice themselves in. If we take a look at Slivko's vision, he has seen nothing of the main base, so he's completely unaware of what could be happening. We've also got some Speedlings moving around the side, going to pick off a pylon that was attempting to go down. We've also got these Zerglings just still running everywhere, being very proactive in hunting down anything, but these ZTs moving across the map. We've got 7 roaches just popping out, but there is still no Spore Crawler at the third base.
Yeah, that's a very important thing to note. If you can make it past the natural, there's actually no detection in the main. Of course, we should see an Overseer start very soon, but the DT's metals, they are splitting up, and he's actually going to get to work on these drones. Slivko, his Spore Crawler actually cannot see the DT in his mineral line, so he's getting in quite a few kills with these Dark Templar. ToD, he's already up to 12 drones killed so far.
This is absolutely brilliant for ToD. He just sneaks straight past those Spore Crawlers. We can see the Overseers have now morphed, but damage has already been done. At the third base, nearly all of the drones have now been killed. This is fantastic for the Protoss player. The DT in the main, 6 kills. The DT of the natural racked up a good number. The third, 9 kills on it. This is brilliant. 22 workers killed in total, Nathanius. That could be very problematic, taking the worker count, 52 probes for ToD to just 40 drones of Slivko.
Yeah, an absolutely fantastically chosen attack here. Tried to get the hatchery, Queen came over, used that transfuse, but like you said, 22 drones have been slaughtered. And, you know, this is one of the disadvantages. He didn't throw an Overseer in to scout the main base. He still doesn't actually know of the Dark Shrine or the Templar Archive, or the Twilight Council. And there's also a double Forge follow-up from ToD, so he's going to be moving into a lot of upgrades, but Mattles, we have some Zerglings and Roaches headed over towards that third base of ToD.
Yeah, this third base could be forced to cancel. There's quite a few units on their way over. ToD does have a small gateway force that he can bring to try and defend this. He wants to keep it up long enough to get a photon overcharge down. That would be really good for him. But behind the Slivko, he is getting down his infestation pit. This small group of roaches and zerglings are getting dealt with very nicely by ToD with some great force fields here at the moment. Just splitting apart the army, going to be able to engage as best as possible. Doesn't really want to lose anything unless he has to, but the third base will be able to go up. It should be absolutely fine now, especially with the ability to photon overcharge. The infestation pit has just now finished, so this pathogen glands, as you were saying at the very start of the game there, Nathanius, infestor play from Slivko, will it be effective? We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting because, you know, ToD even called us at the beginning, and, you know, it's possible that his build choice was actually based off of studying him. It's one of the, you know, the perks of being a caster, I guess, is that he definitely watches a lot of games. He has a lot of knowledge about the players, so this could have been tailored around the scouting that Slivko normally does to get that early damage in, and I feel like versus Infestor play, he is going to be getting the melee upgrades for the Zerglings, so I think Colossi are going to be a smart choice in dealing with this type of composition, but the Hive is on the way for Slivko, and we could see some interesting play up come here, possibly with Vipers, but looks like ToD's pushing out, Mattles.
Yeah, ToD's starting to move forward already. Upgrade-wise, he's got 1-0 done with +1 armor on its way as well. That's a long way ahead of Slivko's upgrades, but the Spire has also been started. The fourth base is on its way down for Slivko, but that's up against the third for ToD, who is still very even in terms of the worker supply, and having that upgrade advantage could be massive for him. The first Infestors are about to start popping out, but it's still quite a roach-heavy composition, which aren't going to benefit completely from the melee upgrades, which is something that ToD is going to be able to be in a very favourable position for. The Infestors are going to have to get some great fungal growths out, Nathanius, and I just don't know if he's going to get enough out in time in order to deal with this push if ToD moves across the map anytime soon.
Yeah, I think ToD's big goal here, shut down the fourth base, prevent that Hive Tech economy from really steamrolling. You know, he did a lot of economic damage early on. Losing this fourth is going to be pretty big. He's even force fielding some of these drones in, and using the Hallucinated Phoenix to scout around. He knows everything that's going on. And you know, the best thing, though, is even if the Infestors were able to get a clip on him, he has a lot of Immortals to fight the Roaches, and he can always use that recall with the Mothership Core.
Yeah, that recall is allowing ToD to be so aggressive here. He may even try and push up towards the third, which is where Slivko is going to try and make a stand. He's lost that fourth base, so he's at the best in equal base situation, which is never too favourable. ToD is slightly behind in supply, but some great force fields there, Nathanius. He is just cutting apart this army, preventing it from being able to engage. So many infested Terrans getting lobbed over. ToD, he doesn't feel like taking the engagement, so he just mass recalls out of there. He took virtually no damage. He is trading so cost effectively compared to his opponent and is in such a good economical footing as well to take this game into the later standing. But Great Aspire, that's on its way down, but ToD, he's already responding to this with the double Stargate because he has seen the Hive morphing and he's seen the Spire coming up with one of those hallucinated Phoenix, so he is completely aware of what his opponent is planning.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself. The Templar Archives coming in as well. Some nice area of effect damage that will be able to protect his Tempest. I feel like, you know, ToD, Tempest is probably going to be his choice at least. We have the Fleet Beacon coming in. He hasn't started producing anything like Void Rays. And in terms of holding off Broodlords, it's pretty much ideal. But we don't really actually have too many Corruptors on the field, just 6 right now. And he's going to want a little bit of support for those too. So he does need to get more Corruptors out. And this is what happens when you lose that fourth base. It can become so hard. But Battles, we have 4 Zealot drop heading into the main base of Slivko.
Yeah, I've already noticed that. I've given all of the viewers a nice little watch of that. Of course, I'm doing the obsing today, and when that comes in, it could be so problematic for BenQ's Slivko, because ToD at the same time, he's moving up towards the right with this Stalker Immortal Force, ready to pressure the fourth base. In comes the War Prism, though. It is ready to deal some nice damage. This is going to force Slivko back, buying ToD more time to get out of the Tempest. The Great Aspire, that is getting focused. A big warp in of more Zealots, and the units for Slivko so far out. At the same time, Zealots attacking into the 4th and 5th base. This is really problematic. The Great Aspire getting transfused. It's got to stay up, otherwise Slivko is in such a bad position, and it will just manage to survive. But the 4th base will go down. The 5th base is just staying up, but the 3rd is now getting pressured as well.
Yeah, and I think more importantly than anything else, aside from just killing off the East expansion, he's bought himself a little bit of time as well. Aside from killing any drones or forcing any of those units to run back. And now we have the first couple of Tempest entering the field. We have 2 of them right now. We have a 3rd in production. We may even see a 4th one, but Storm is coming in. +3 attack. He's getting his +1 air weapons. ToD is setting himself up to make a big air transition in the later phase of this game. And I feel like with the Broodlord setup, all ToD needs to do is not overextend and get caught by the Infestors, and Tempest, they do pretty damn well versus Broodlords, Mattles.
They do. Well, they do bonus damage, of course, 2 massive air units, 80 damage per hit. That is one way to shred through Broodlords incredibly quickly. The 2nd Spire now coming down as well for Slivko, so he's ready to start going into those double air upgrades. He's got +1 flyer carapace just starting. 2-2 melee attack and ground armor will be helping those Broodlords, but upgrades for ToD, he's already at 2-2 with +3 ground weapons getting research. No +3 ground armor though, as of yet. A couple of roaches are trying to push into the 4th base of ToD, but aren't going to be too successful with all of ToD's army coming over to deal with that. Nice blink down onto the low ground. The roaches should get cleaned up very efficiently.
Yeah, and at the same time, we have Zealots moving into the east side, going for that expansion as well as a drop heading towards the main base. ToD is really stretching the multitasking here of Slivko. These roaches will be able to clean up the Zealots, but, you know, it's paining him. He's pulling his army all over the place. He actually does not have anything in the main base to defend this drop, and just a handful of roaches and a spine crawler. So if ToD goes for a big warp in here, he could do a lot of damage and a lot of minerals banked.
Big
he's going to engage that expansion.
Yeah, at the 5th base, a lot of good fungal growths go down, but a mass recall. All of Slivko's army came down there. Meanwhile, the Zealots up in the main base, more getting warped in. A DT in the mix as well. Just going to try and really focus down this Great Aspire. ToD does not want that up, but the transfuses are relentless. Meanwhile, at the east side, that base is still taking a little bit of damage. That Great Aspire has to stay up for Slivko. Otherwise, he's just not going to be able to continue the Broodlords, and it does fall there, Nathanius.
Yeah, very nice catch. We already have another Greater Spire on the way, though. 4 Broodlords were started before this little bit of a skirmish. I really like the ToD. He actually threw in, using the Sentry energy, he actually had hallucinated Archons in with that push towards the 5th base. A really nice touch, being able to use those to help assist. And, you know, he went for that fight against the Broodlords. He hasn't shown his Tempest. He's got 7 of them.
That is a good number of Tempest, especially when they're only, well, there's 12 Broodlords out already, but the Corruptor support just really isn't there. There's not a single Corruptor on the field at the moment, Nathanius. That could cause quite a few problems. And ToD, he's still just being very aggressive. He's forced to cancel on the 5th base to the right. He's taken his own 5th base as well. Meanwhile, we do have the Broodlords starting to siege down towards ToD's 4th. And this is where he needs to show those Tempests and needs to tear through them as quickly as possible. Yeah,
and the Tempests are coming onto that west side expansion, but, well, Tempests are on the way to deal with these Broodlords. He will be able to pick off the Nexus. A good catch there for Slivko, but I feel like this is the part of the game where ToD's army reaches its critical strength. He's got the range. His sentries are going to get caught off guard, though, so he is going to lose quite some units here for free. These Infestors getting off great fungal growths as well. ToD needs to watch his positioning a little bit more carefully. He cannot afford to lose this army as good as it is. These Tempests do need a lot of support metals, but, well, he's actually going to get an Oracle, and I think we're going to see some very nice Revelation play being used to be able to spot these units at a long range.
That would be a really nice touch. ToD does have his 5th base to the right up, so losing that 4th was bad but not disastrous, because currently Slivko has still not been able to re-secure his 5th, so they are on equal bases. But as you said, those sentries got really caught out of guard. There's currently actually only 1 sentry left on the field, which is probably not as many as you'd want. Slivko is also just about to complete his 3-3 ground weapon and carapace upgrades, plus 3 armor, only just now getting started for the Protoss. A couple of Roaches and Speedlings are making their way into the main base, though, and there isn't really anything here to defend. Just a couple of cannons going down and 1 DT getting morphed in just to try and work its way through this. But those Stargates, they need to stay up, really.
Yeah, he's actually going to focus on the Cybernetics core, so that air plating for ToD is going to be shut down. He's picking off a lot of the probes that are mining the gas. A good amount of damage here, and this is also buying Slivko time, preventing ToD from moving out with that core army. And ToD is just about maxed out, but he needs to make sure that he doesn't lose.
Well, ToD's pushing in with Zealots up towards the 3rd base, and they're doing an incredible amount of damage. At the same time, though, Broodlords, they are coming and sieging up this 5th of ToD once more, and he will be able to snipe off the Nexus. Meanwhile, the Infestors coming back, just trying to deal with these Zealots, but a good number of workers killed so far this game. ToD's killed just under 50 drones. The Archons, the Voidways, and the Tempests are staying around the middle, but these Broodlings, they're doing a nice amount of damage, but the Zealots are still rampaging at the 3rd base of Slivko.
Yeah, he's just doing so much economic damage, and, you know, Slivko does have a nice army, but he hasn't been able to build up that bank that Zerg players want. He has the Infestors to be cost-effective with, but he needs to be pretty careful, because right now he's pretty much only got 1 mining base. Just that 5th he took earlier. His natural is pretty much mined out, the main base is mined out, and the 3rd base, well, it doesn't exist anymore.
No, it just got completely annihilated by those Zealots. There's an Oracle out on the field as well, just really trying to tempt its way through. See, the Overseer does now get taken out. The Tempest count is currently sitting up at 7, up against 8 Broodlords, but there's 19 Corruptors there and 13 Infestor. This is reminiscent of the sort of army composition a Zerg would have got in Wings of Liberty, not something that we're so used to seeing in Heart of the Swarm. But these Tempest, they've got to get in a nice position, and then ToD should be okay. He's got a good number of Archons as well to help really tank up some of the damage.
Yeah, and he's trying to send some Zealots to deny that 3rd base again, but Infested Terrans are going to get thrown on some fungal growths. Of course, the Infested Terrans do not get the attack upgrade bonuses, so they actually have a bit of a rough time killing the Zealots, and it looks like ToD might actually be able to chew through this, but he's headed over towards the 5th base, moving in with those Tempests. He has a very nice position here. That Oracle just waiting to drop some Revelation on these. Ooh, sniped off.
So close, really, indeed, incredibly close. Now, the Tempest, they're falling back. ToD wasn't able to quite take down that hatchery, but he is sending 2 Immortals in just to start working down. And if ToD is able to take this out, that would be brilliant. Meanwhile, Zealots are going back towards the 3rd that is being remade. And there's no units getting pulled for these Immortals, but the Immortals are focusing the drones, not the hatchery. Oh, the Corruptor's coming over ToD. He could have taken this hatchery out so easily. It only had 158 health there. But now with the Broodlords there, will he still be able to do it? Yes, he will. And now Slivko is currently not mining any minerals apart from long-range mining, Nathanias.
Yeah, this is a really bad position to be in as Slivko. ToD still has that mostly fresh base on the west side, and of course he just took this base on the east. He's got a lot of money left to mine, and he's going to be able to build up a bank now that he's maxing out. He's finishing up with Void Rays, getting +3 air weapons, and I feel like with his quads, he's got like 5 Stargates worth of production. Once he starts to bank up any amount of money, it's going to be so difficult for Slivko to properly trade with how much these Void Rays wreck Corruptors.
Now, Slivko, he's not completely out of the woods yet. He's still got a fairly substantial army down on the field. He's got a good amount of gas banked up, but his problem is he's having to long-range mine from his 3rd to get the minerals. That's where he's really starved. The army supply currently sitting at 144 to 117 of Slivko. But Slivko has Infestors and Broodlords. Both are able to trade very cost-effectively if they get good engagements. But ToD, look at this army for him at the moment. So many Tempests, Void Rays, Archons. What more could you hope for as a Protoss late game?
Yeah, this is about as good as it gets in terms of army composition setups. The Stalkers become a little bit less useful as the game goes on, but they do add in a good amount of DPS against the Corruptors if they do get too close. But I feel like ToD is comfortable enough now that he doesn't need to push. He can just build up his bank a little bit and continue to harass, but it does look like he may want to try to force something here. And the Infungals are going to hit. This is going to be it, pretty much. Big, giant fight going down. The Tempest are getting good shots off on these Broodlords. Storms are dropping on top of everything. Infested Terrans not going to be able to do too much. The Queens throwing out their transfuses. All of the Corruptors are moving in on these Tempests, but the Storms are just hurting them so badly, and the Infestors are running out of energy. ToD up 156 supply. GG! Game 1 will go to our XMG Protoss.